talking about the murders, the Axeman sent a very famous letter, which I am not going to read. I might read a snippet of it, but he sent this very famous letter to a local paper saying that he was going to swing by the city at 12:15 a.m., that's just after midnight, on March 19th, 1919, and said that he was going to kill somebody, that he would spare the lives of anybody who was playing jazz music in their homes. And apparently there was a lot of jazz played that night. But that leads me to suspect that maybe the letter wasn't written by the Axeman, but it was written by maybe a frustrated jazz musician and who wanted to gin up a little business for himself.
If it was written by the Axeman, and I've read that letter, the Axeman is a loon.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Seriously off their rocker. Like the things that are said in that letter, something alluding to I am, basically the spirit of death, and I'm ephemeral, and yada, yada, yada. It's just like, whoa.
Yeah, because that's unusual for somebody who goes around hacking people up.
I was about to say, you're very high on what you're doing and what you're getting out of. And that just tells me right there that the person that was doing this, if it is one person. Wow.
Well, yeah, you'd have to be off your rocker to want to go slaughter people with an axe anyway. Yeah, anyway, so if you want to do a Google on that, there's the Wikipedia page, and also practically every other page that talks about this.
Just about everyone has that letter.
I will congratulate the Axeman on good writing. I thought it was a very well-written letter.
It is. I like it, actually.
Yeah.
It's well-written.
Yeah, it's kind of like...
You should read it.
It
does.
It is a great cover letter.
I'm just going to go ahead and throw out there. It starts out, esteemed mortal.
I know. I know.
That's the salutation on this.
Notice where it comes from. It says hell, March 13th, 1919.
Esteemed mortal.
Yeah.
They've never caught me, and they never will. I'm not going any further. No.
Oh, okay.
I just want to give people a little snippet of do we need to read this? Do you want to read part of it?
Oh, let me read one.
Well, or do you want to do it now, or you want to do it in context of the time when the letter came in? Because it comes in
that's a good point.
After a majority or a good number of the slayings have happened.
It actually does. Yeah, that's a good point. So we'll talk about the letter a little later. So let's talk about the departed. So the first victims were Joseph and Catherine Maggio. I think it's Maggio.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, he was an Italian grocer, and like many people back in those days, they had an apartment in the back or above their store or their bar or whatever they had. So May 22nd, 1918, he broke into their home, and then he cut their throats with a straight razor. The straight razor apparently belonged to Joseph Maggio's brother.
It was in the house and he just used it, or?
It's hard to say exactly how he got his hands on it, but essentially he cut their throats and then took an axe to them and bashed them too. And he cut Catherine's neck so deeply that he nearly decapitated her.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So Joseph actually...
Very stable.
Yeah, so Joseph Maggio actually survived for a few hours. He was bleeding severely.
That's almost worse.
Yeah, and his brother... I know, seriously, I want it quick. So his brother lived in the apartment next door, and apparently at some point during the night he woke up and heard these strange moans coming from the other side of the wall. He started knocking on the wall and got no response, so he went around and came into their home and found them. And, of course, obviously...
That couldn't have been fun.
No, and I don't think so. In the apartment, they found a bloody set of clothes. So apparently the murderer had brought a clean set of clothes to change into when he was done. And the straight razor was found on the lawn of a property very nearby. I don't know if it was right next door or a few lots away, but that was found a day or two later. And it turns out, again, the straight razor belonged to the brother who ran a barbershop. And apparently he had this barbershop, and he had told a coworker that he was taking it home or taking it out to get it fixed because it had a notch in the blade, a notch in the edge. So anyway, he became a big suspect.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was released because they really couldn't have any evidence on him, and he didn't have any real obvious motive. So first two murders.
They used the straight blade of the brother. The brother found them. He lived right next door.
It is a little suspicious, huh?
He didn't hear screaming or anything, but he did hear knocking a little bit later.
Yeah.
It just...
Well, and the most disturbing part of hearing knocking later is somebody flailing. I mean, this again. I made this joke last week, but it's like it makes me think of Sweeney Todd again with the straight razor bit.
Especially,
But I can just think of that weird, I'm desperate for help, and this is just one of those weird places my brain goes to again. But you're there, you're helpless, you know that you're not in a good place, and you're trying to get somebody's attention. The only thing you can do is bang on the wall because you can't make noise because you've had your throat slit. I mean, what a powerless feeling.
That would suck.
Yeah, I guess I just, again, it's like, okay, well, even if it was like moaning or just like knocking, like that woke his brother up, but like surely someone screamed. Like,
not necessarily. I mean, the thing about it is if the guy was quick enough and stealthy enough, he could slit their throats before they could wake up and start screaming. And
yes, that's true.
Once your throat is slit, you really can't scream.
That's definitely true. All right.
Well, I was gonna say is that let's think about this, and I don't want to go into too much detail, but I'm just trying to think of how could you kill one person without the other knowing when they're sleeping side by side?
Well, if he killed the wife first.
Well, but there's two ways that you can think about it. Is he was on her side of the bed, and he cut her throat and then moved across and went to the husband's side. Or what's even more disturbing is, remember that most people, I presume, most couples these days sleep in something that equates to at least a queen-size bed. In that day and age, a queen-size bed was a luxury. So you're more in something that's along the lines of a single. So if you're both on your backs or on your sides, person can lean over and get one and then the other. And
that would explain why one was like pretty well done and the other was less well done.
Right, the farther one he's got to put a little more effort to get to. I mean, I'm bemoaning this. Let's move forward.
So
anyway. The brother was deemed not a suspect
well, he was still deemed a suspect, but they really had nothing on him.
Okay.
So the next murder was a guy named Louis Bessumer.
I think it's Louis.
Yeah, is it Louis? Okay, Louis.
Usually.
Louis Bessumer and his mistress Harriet Lowe. Harriet actually survived this one. So he was struck with a hatchet in the head.
And this is in June of 1918.
Oh, yeah, June 1980. So a little more than a month since the previous one. Again, the axe murder, he used an axe, but he didn't necessarily chop people to pieces with the axe. He just beat them to death. Because an axe is just a kick-ass hammer. Let's face it.
Yeah, it's a very big hammer.
Oh, yeah. He got a skull fracture from that, and his mistress Harriet Lowe was also hacked, and she was unconscious. And they were discovered by the driver of a bakery wagon named John Zanka. He found them in a puddle of blood, and they were both bleeding. And the axe, which again belonged to Bessumer, was found in the bathroom of the apartment.
Well, and if I remember right, the only reason the delivery guy found him is it was a grocery, correct?
Yeah. So he was
he was a delivery guy, and he showed up at whatever his normal time is.
Yeah. And they weren't there.
Lewis is supposed to be there, and he's always there, and he's not there. This is weird. So he went over to the residence, or up to the residence, or around to the residence, whichever the case may be, and that's how he walked in on this thing.
Yeah, they didn't arrest him for it though. But they found a guy named Louis Ubicon, who was a 41-year-old black guy. So that's probably why they arrested him. Black guy.
At that time,
especially at that.
At that time, that's unfortunately the practice.
Apparently, this guy had worked in the store, and so I'm not really clear if he had worked in the store, been fired, or if he'd just been hired. But apparently, that was enough for the police. But they had no evidence, so they finally had to let him out. He did offer some conflicting accounts of his whereabouts on the day of the attack, but despite that, they really didn't have anything on him, so they had to let him go. And then Bessumer himself was actually given a fair amount of scrutiny, and the police decided that they'd seen a bunch of letters. They found a bunch of letters in German, Russian, and Yiddish in his house, and they decided that he was possibly a German spy. So they undertook a full investigation of that, and Harriet Lowe finally told police that she thought he was a German spy. Eventually, he was released, and
because he survived too. They both survived.
Well, no.
Yeah.
Lewis died, Bassumer died, right? But Lowe
Louis.
survived. Louis.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Louis
actually-
died, but his mistress Harriet survived. Correct?
No, actually,
No,
no.
they
Louis,
both
no,
Oh, both
Louis-
of them survived.
Well, they survived. Eventually, what happened with Harriet Lowe is that from the blows to her head from the hatchet, it damaged some nerves, and she wound up basically paralyzed on one side of her face. And so she underwent surgery to try to fix that, and she died in surgery.
But she was kind of an unreliable witness to the whole thing because she
Yeah.
kept putting out really weird statements, and I'm quoting her saying something along the lines of, "Oh no, it was a mulatto man. No, it was a big tall man," and like things
Yeah.
just got all muddled. But I'm sorry if you've been struck in the head with an axe,
You might not.
Yeah.
you have the best recall.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But again, they kept arresting people, and they could never pin it on anybody. But anyway, after she died, again, that a lot of attention had turned to Bassumer, and so the police arrested him and charged him with murder since she died for reasons relating to the attack. And he actually went to prison, but eventually, when the trial came around, he was acquitted after a 10-minute jury deliberation.
Solid evidence right there. Solid
Obviously,
evidence.
Yeah, the jury didn't want to waste any more time on this. Oh, yeah, and she did say, Harriet Lowe did say that she believed that it was Lou that sounded like the most reliable person. Okay, so next up, the next attack did not result in death. Somebody named Mrs. Schneider. I don't know why. Nobody seems to know what her first name is.
Weird.
Yeah, August 5th, 1918, so it's a couple of months have gone by. She was pregnant, 28 years old, found a dark figure standing over her, and was bashed in the face repeatedly. And several cuts, lacerations, etc. And she was found by her husband when he came home about midnight. She said she didn't really remember much about the attack. Apparently she remembered, a dark figure looming over her. The husband said that nothing was stolen, and the windows and doors did not appear to have been forced open. So they figured that, and the police figured that the weapon was a lamp that was nearby. So the guy just came in, picked the lamp, bashed her in the head with it a bunch. But she didn't die. And this one, I kind of wonder if this one's not even related to the X-Men, because, it's not really his MO.
Here's it, and you know what? This is my MO in every one of these stories like this, is that when you get into the middle of one of these stories, is that this guy's MO changes.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
There's no reason you have to stick to the same MO every
but
time.
when we're looking at these kind of stories where it's a presumed serial killer, things are usually consistent. They're shot with a .44, they're attacked with a machete, something like that. But in each one of these cases, the only thing that seems to be consistent is that it's a weapon that's found in their home, which is just a weird...
It's a weapon found in their home used to attack their head.
Yeah, which
And
is
it's
just
usually,
strange. It doesn't fit what we see normal's the wrong word, but typical behavior in these. So it's odd to
And
me.
we have also talked a little bit about the phenomena of like piggybacking. When
Yeah.
there's a serial killer, when there's like a couple, and then somebody's like, oh, I have been meaning to attack that person.
I have been meaning to murder somebody, and that would be a great time.
Now would be a great time. I'll just
know.
like copy the MO of the serial killer. It'll get attributed to the serial killer, and no one will be the wiser.
That's why I'm really getting kind of impatient for a serial killer
Yeah, I
around here,
know you
because I got
are.
a couple of people I need to off. And,
We're not doing the show anymore.
Wow, can we go to the next one now that you've
Yeah.
made this super awkward?
Yeah.
Or did we... Oh, actually, have we left details behind about Mrs. Schneider?
Well, let's see. Hang on.
Well, she had the baby, and everything was fine there. We know that.
Yeah.
Did we say she was pregnant?
Yeah. She
Oh, I wasn't
I
paying
did say
attention.
she was pregnant. But yeah. Okay, so another detail. They naturally, the police went out and found an ex-convict named James Gleason, and they arrested him. And of course, they released him because there was no evidence. And it seems to be a recurring theme in this case. And then investigators began to speculate that the attack was related to the previous attacks, but I don't think that this necessarily was.
Yeah.
It might have been.
Yeah, this one seems like a weak link.
Yeah, a little bit. So our next victim was a man named Joseph Romano. He was living with his two nieces, August 10th, 1918. So this one came pretty quick on the heels of the last one. Yeah, they found a sound of commotion. Pauline and Mary, his nieces, awoke to the sound of a commotion and came into the room. They discovered that he had taken a serious blow to the head and had 2 big open cuts when the assailant was fleeing the scene. But they were able to see that he was a dark-skinned, heavy-set man who wore a dark suit and a slouched hat. So it sounds like maybe Orson Welles. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. He was actually injured, but he was able to walk to the ambulance, so he wasn't dead yet, but he died 2 days later because of the head trauma.
Well, maybe they shouldn't have let him walk to the ambulance.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, you got these huge cuts? You're feeling good? Okay, cool. Well, why don't you just, get up and walk yourself to the ambulance?
It's not like it was paramedics of today with the folding stretcher. It was a cot on sticks,
Probably
for
would have
criminy
been better.
sakes. And was this do we know, Joe? Was this a ground floor apartment, or...
That I don't know. That's a good question. I'm assuming it was, but maybe
I
not.
would presume too, but
yeah. They found a bloody axe in the backyard, and they discovered that a panel in the back door had been chiseled away. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty consistent with the accident.
Yep.
And this was the 3rd attack like this, the 4th if you count Mr. Schneider. So naturally, this touched off a lot of mayhem in the city, and people got all kinds of upset and worried, and probably started buying guns if they didn't already have them. Although this is New Orleans, so I imagine just about everybody had a gun. You wouldn't think.
Something. But if you're asleep, it's hard to defend yourself with a gun.
Yeah.
Especially when you wake up to getting bashed in the head with an axe.
Yeah. And this is when the tie-in began to the murders in 1911, 1912. A retired detective named John D'Antonio speculated that they might be related to the same thing because of similarities in the attacks. And then he would speculate even further, and I think this is just kind of silliness here, but he basically tried to profile the killer as an individual with dual personalities who killed without motive and basically just had 2 personalities. When he slipped into his killer mode, his other personality maybe even wasn't aware of it. And there's no evidence to support any of that.
That sounds like sensationalization right there to me.
Yeah.
So. I mean, I'm not trying to detract from this, and I know that sometimes we fall into that, but this just sounds like I'm making a statement to the news to generate awareness, and I'm not buying that.
Yeah. So anyway.
I almost wonder if it was like a ploy to convince the murderer to come forward. Because if you heard that, if you had heard that, oh yeah, we think it's this person, and we don't really blame him because we think it's just dual personality. He can't control it. He doesn't even know he's doing it. And you were like, oh well, I have been killing people. I guess I should tell them.
I mean,
I can't control.
Oh, sorry. It could be that might actually be a worthwhile tactic in a situation like this to make statements that aren't true, because the killer is almost certainly reading the papers, and he might be tempted to try to contact you and set the record straight, and he's not going to necessarily turn himself in.
Sure.
But even writing a letter might provide a clue or two. Oh, anyway, let's move on here. I don't want to spend too much more time on the victims. The next ones were, and I apologize if you're Italian and this is your last name and I mispronounced it, Charles Cortimiglia, and Rosie and Mary Cortimiglia. So a guy, his wife Rosie, and their daughter Mary. He lived in Gretna, which is just across the river from New Orleans. So it really is pretty much part of New Orleans, I think. So March 10th, 1919. Notice the big gap there, too. Between August 10th and March 10th. There's quite a few months.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Where the heck was he?
I know. He might have been off murdering people elsewhere, or he could have been maybe in jail. Maybe he did a little stint in jail. Hard to say. So screams were heard coming from their house. A guy named Orlando Giordano went across the street to investigate the screams. And when he got in there, he noticed that Charles and his wife Rosie and their daughter Mary had all been attacked. Rosie was alive with a head wound, but her daughter was dead. And Charles was laying on the floor bleeding. They were rushed to the hospital, and they both had skull fractures. And as in previous incidents, nothing was stolen from the house. A panel on the back door had been chiseled away, and a bloody axe was found on the back porch of the home. Charles was released in a couple of days, and he survived. And then Rosie stayed in under medical care because she was more seriously injured. When she woke up, she claimed that the guy that rushed to the scene, Orlando Giordano, he and his son were supposedly responsible for the attacks. Orlando was 69 years old, and it was thought that he was probably too old and frail to have actually done this. But his son was a lot younger and was 6 feet tall and weighed 200 pounds. So, he possibly could have done it. But Charles Cortimiglia said that his wife's claims were wrong, and she had been bashed in the head.
Well, And again, the same thing. You've been whaled in the head.
Yeah. I mean, head traumas can really do a number on you. Believe me.
It really screws up your short-term memory.
Oh yeah.
Also, given that she saw him right after the attack, right?
Rushing
I think that
maybe she misunderstood the situation.
Yeah, that you could think